Well, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Invite everyone to please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Jim Donbeck.
Here.
Steve Nelson.
Here.
James Shiloh.
Here.
Julian Davey. Here. Jeff Jacobson.
Here.
Eric Jones.
Present.
Kristen Wren. Here. Quorum's present.
Are there any changes to the agenda as proposed? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Wren. Yes. Shiloh.
Yes.
Davey.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Donbeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Audience to visitors. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like to address the board on any particular issue? All right, we'll move along then. Communications, correspondence, informational items. Did we fix our
Just one.
access? FOIA requests? There were none? Committee reports?
No planning and zoning. SEF doesn't meet till January, which will be a grants night. And I think it's January. And I just, since I wasn't at the last meeting, I would just echo, I did attend a virtual conference for the school boards as well, and thought for what it was run pretty efficiently and well done. So I will get the report on the final resolutions. When I have that, I'll bring that to the board so they can see what was actually passed.
I agree, the virtual conference was actually better than I anticipated.
I agree.
But I did report, I think I reported on that last meeting.
Yep.
I did also attend an IASB virtual presentation on the press packet, the next press packet that we're going to do. And the policy committee will be meeting in January to go through that.
Yep.
And also, we had a presentation on just general information about running for school board, so, and recruiting people to run for school board. So
Good.
I listened into that as well. So it was their, their virtual presentations are very well done. Generally, it's just whether you can find the time to tune in. I think most of them, if not all of them, are available on their website, though, so you can watch them if you can't make them when they're live.
Great.
Any other committee reports? Assistant Superintendent for Business. It's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Tonight, first on the docket, I have an update to the FY21 budget. We are 5 months into that budget now. These numbers that you're going to see tonight are actually only 4 months worth because we're still closing out the month of November since this meeting is an early meeting this month. So first I wanted to provide you guys with an update on COVID-related costs that we've incurred since July 1st. So we broke it down here by the main categories here, those being personnel, O&M, professional development, and technology. So for personnel, those would be our health aides that we just hired to assist in the buildings when we are able to bring our students back. Our O&M costs are any of the cleaning supplies, plexiglass, masks, things of those natures. Professional development were opportunities for our staff to attend online learning, to learn about online learning. So those were some opportunities for them. And then also the technology costs there would be any of the instructional materials that we purchased for teachers to be able to utilize for remote learning. Also Chromebooks and all of the technology setups in the classroom, much to what we have here tonight. Then the other chart there is our reimbursement that we receive through the CARES Act. So we were able to receive $287,946 in federal dollars to cover some of the COVID-related costs. So when we divide that out, we do have some district expenses that we had to provide. So you can see the breakout there. Are there any questions on the COVID-related costs?
Nicole, does this fit within the box of the contingency amount that you had in the budget? Is it over or above that number? Or?
It's right around that amount,
Okay.
right around that $300,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing I want to show you guys tonight is this financial dashboard that we've been talking about. We're ready to go live with this. So this is a URL that will sit on our website that our community will be able to go out and look at any point in time during the year. So we will update this as our months close out. So these numbers that you're going to see here tonight, again, just go through October since we haven't closed out November yet. So this first one that we have up here is a first quarter overview. And so again, as we finish out each quarter, this will be updated with the numbers. So the first tab that David has up here is our revenues for the first quarter. And then David, if you want to just kind of click through, yep, those tabs. It has our expenses for the first quarter. And so it gives you a percentage of the budget that we've gone through. Gives you some nice graphs there. And then if you click on that last tab, it gives you kind of some historical information about where we were in prior years also. This would just be for our operating funds. Okay, so then David, if you want to click on the monthly revenue overview. So this would be our year-to-date numbers through October. And I like this because in big bold letters it has either green coloring or red coloring. So green, we want to see green. That's favorable. So these are our revenues so far. You can see they all say favorable so far. And then if you want to click on monthly expense. So this is the same thing for expenditures. These are for all funds. This would be our operating funds plus our IMRF, our capital outlay, and our life safety fund and debt service. So down in the bottom right there, if you look, it kind of gives you some year-to-date numbers for historical purposes also. So it compares those year over year. Okay, and then David, if you want to go, there's a variance. Should be a variance one up there. That, yep. Play around with it here. So what this does is it breaks it down and actually gives you some commentary on what those numbers represent. So it gives you the actual dollars amount and what function is driving those variances in the revenue and expenses. So as you can see right now, we're favorable in both the revenue and the expenditure side. And so just some numbers I kind of wanted to throw out. As far as expenditure-wise, we are favorable in the salary and benefits because we are seeing some savings with some resignations that have not been replaced for this school year, mainly in our non-certified staff with our paraeducators. So that totals about $134,000 of staff that we have not replaced or cannot find replacements for. We also had a couple certified staff in the budget for interventionists for this year that we did not hire. So that is about $120,000 savings also. So those numbers are reflected in this variance report also. Some other big differences you're going to see are our food services. So we're not spending as much because we're not serving as many meals. But also with that, we're not receiving as much revenue also in federal dollars from the National School Lunch Program because we get reimbursements for those meals also. So those are kind of a wash. The other big one you're going to see is our dues and fees account. That is way under budget because we are not attending any athletic events, and so we're not paying for any of that. Also, our special education tuition is in that also. So those numbers are also down this year as well. On the revenue side, we are, let me see if you can, is there another tab up there, David? Can't see it. Yeah, click that one. So again, this kind of breaks it down here. I like this because it gives a good analysis of where these numbers are pulling. So our taxes are up a little bit this year from where we budgeted. Our earnings are actually down. Our state revenue is about the same. It's a little over. Our federal dollars are down a little bit, again, because of that National School Lunch Program. And also, I think at the time in October when this is pulling, we hadn't done our expenditure reports for our IDEA grant, which is our special education grants. So those numbers aren't reflected in this also. So again, this is something that's going to be included when we launch our new website. So we're working on embedding this, and you can go out and look at this live. And it will update itself once we update those monthly numbers in Forecast 5 every month. Are there any questions on this?
No, it looks good. I think this is a welcome addition to our website.
And then I will also include some of these reports with your guys' monthly financial reports now going forward.
Awesome.
Yep.
So where will people find it on the website? Will it be, you have the finance area?
Yep.
It'll be there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so we're updating each of our department websites as well, and so this is where that will be housed.
And it'll be continually updated or once a month updated?
Once a month, yep. Once we close out the month and we update all those numbers from our general ledger up into Forecast 5, and then that's where that pulls from.
Awesome.
Yep. Okay, then the other thing I just wanted to touch on quickly, as we're talking about this year's budget, we're also looking forward to next year's budget already coming up. So just kind of an update. This is our budget timeline. This is the timeline that we've followed for the last couple years now, and I think it's worked out really good. Next month, we're getting ready to meet with our administrators and our program managers. So we'll meet with them in January, early February. And then they will start coming to talk to you guys at our February board meetings. So we'll have learning and teaching and technology will be here at the first board meeting in February. And then the second one will have O&M, transportation, and then our personnel presentation that night. And then we'll continue with Oscar will do their presentation in May when they do their program update. And then Mr. Carrick will be here in June when he does his annual update also. Any questions on the budget? Okay, then the next two items I have is resolutions to authorize myself to increase the district's working cash fund and also to sell non-referendum tax exempt bonds for the purpose of capital projects that we've been talking about for the last few months. This came after our facilities assessment that we did with our architects. We've identified those projects that need to be taken care of in the next 3 years. And we presented some options at the last board meeting. And so what this is going to do is move us forward in the direction that we need to go for that timeline. So, Jim, we have these listed out as 2 separate voting items that need to be, I would recommend that would be passed tonight so we can move forward with the timeline.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution declaring the intention to issue $20 million in working cash fund bonds for the purpose of increasing the district's working cash fund and directing that notice of such intention be published in the manner provided by law?
So moved?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Shiloh,
Yes.
Davy,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Wren,
Yes.
Dunbeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution setting forth and describing in detail claims heretofore authorized and allowed for proper school purposes, which are presently outstanding and unpaid, declaring the intention to issue $2,900,000 in bonds for the purpose of paying claims against the district, and directing that notice of such intention be published as provided by law?
So moved. Jones? Second.
Moved and seconded?
Excuse me.
Just so these claims are, we're paying off old debt with this.
Correct. Yep, the 2013.
These are our callable bonds that we can pay off
Yep,
early and save some money that way.
correct.
Yeah.
And then that money goes back into our debt service extension base, so then we're able to pay for more capital improvement projects.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Davy,
Yes.
Jacobson,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Wren,
Yes.
Shiloh,
Yes.
Dunbeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Superintendent's report.
Good evening again. They've given me a clicker this month, or for this meeting, so we'll see if I can figure this out.
Uh-oh.
Look out. You should be scared. As always, I'd like to start with our mission, empowering all learners to succeed in their world. Our vision, to provide an ideal learning experience where students and staff are engaged and want to come back the next day. Our core values, honesty, trustworthiness, integrity, equality, empathy, respect, citizenship, digital citizenship, responsibility, and collaboration. And the 5 questions that our professional learning communities ask: what do we want students to know and learn? What do students want to know and learn? How will we know if they have learned it? What will we do if they don't learn it? And what do we do if they already know it? And with that takes me to the first item under the superintendent's report, which is return to learning update. Not a lot of information here, some reminders from last month, and then a little bit of updated information. A couple of reminders. The adaptive pause began November 30th. It will run through Monday, January 18th. That's Martin Luther King Day. Our intent is to return to school on January 19th, that Tuesday, in a hybrid model at that point. A reminder that the recommended pause from the DeKalb County Health Department was a transition to remote learning, not closing schools. Our goal is that COVID health metrics support a return to in-person learning and will allow us to implement a hybrid model in grades K through 12. And as we've done throughout the school year thus far, we'll monitor those health metrics and other data leading up to January 19th. Just last week, we had a conversation with area superintendents. DeKalb County Health Department was represented as well, and had a very good conversation about what the future looks like. Those, those numbers, we're going to need to be watching those very closely. As you'll see here in a minute, some of the COVID numbers did come up a little bit after the Thanksgiving holiday. We're about 2 weeks out now, so I'll talk about those in a minute. We'll be watching those closely after Christmas and the New Year as well, and particularly after the New Year as we get closer and closer to that January 19th date. We do have some students currently attending in small groups. Those are primarily special education students. Those are our students who are in most need of support, so not all special education students, but the students who are in need of the most support. For example, students in some of our ABLE programs. The Life School is open and running. In fact, I visited there last week. And then we have a handful of special education students who have some unique needs that we're filling. We also have a small number of students, general education students, who are receiving academic and some social emotional support as well during the pause. A very small number of students, but those students who are really our priority and we need to have that kind of contact with, we are allowing those students in the building. So one area that it has gotten some conversation that I wanted to expand on a little bit tonight, just wanted to talk about some of the situation at the high school. One of the challenges that the high school staff is facing is a higher than average number of failing grades compared to past years. So they've been working on that throughout this first semester, but asked for some more detailed information on what the high school is doing, so I wanted to share that with you guys tonight. So the high school is responding in a couple of different ways. They've adjusted content and assignments in classes, so there may not be as much homework. Some of the assessments may look a little bit differently. And one of the things that we're trying to do is focus on some of the most essential skills in the classes to make sure that students are getting that content as we near the end of this first semester. As a reminder, high school is unique. When students take high school classes, they either get the credit or they don't, and there are graduation requirements that have to be met. So that's an additional issue that we're keeping an eye on at the high school. So as we near the end of this first semester, which actually is January 23rd, if I remember correctly, get through the Christmas holidays, then we have a couple weeks after that. So really starting to do what we can to make sure students are engaged and making up work as much as we can. We are providing opportunities for makeups, whether those are assignments or projects or whatever the case may be. The focus there is on making sure that students learn the content as opposed to issuing an assignment if kids either do it or they don't do it. So really trying to make contact with students when assignments aren't turned in and trying to get those things made up and turned in. Teachers at the high school have office hours every afternoon for students. So many students are taking advantage of those, and I think as we near the end of this first semester, we're seeing those numbers increase a little bit as there's some pressure mounting. But all high school teachers have office hours where they can be reached by students, they can be reached by parents. We can set up virtual meetings, phone calls, things like that, so that teachers, parents, students, and/or administration, if needed, can have a conversation about where students are at in an individual course or in all of their classes as we near the end of the first semester. One of the other things that the high school has done is implement student support plans. So these are plans in writing where students, parents and guardians, teachers, administrators, again, if necessary, can work together to identify areas of improvement for the students and then develop a plan to overcome any challenges that they're facing. So for example, if a student has not been engaged in a particular class this first semester, but we're nearing the end and they recognize that they haven't been and they collaborate with their teacher, get the parent involved, they identify what the issues have been. Has it been a technical problem? Has it just been students choosing not to log in and maybe parents aren't home? So students have a little bit more independence. and developing a plan to help those students make sure that they're engaged, turning in the work, relearning content that needs to be relearned, things of that nature. So the plan identifies what the need is, and then it develops a plan or a strategy to overcome that, especially as we get to the end of this first semester. One of the other things that was shared with me this week is that the number of failing grades has decreased by over 100 over the last 2 weeks. So we're starting to see some improvement, some progress in that area, again, as we get to these last 5 or 6 weeks of the school year. So this is just a couple of examples of what the high school staff and administration are doing in specific as the number of failing grades has increased during the semester just to combat that a little bit. And at the end of the day, it's important that students are passing, but I think it's even more important that students are learning. So I think some of the adjustments that have been made at the high school are just great ideas, and I'm excited to see how the progress goes here over these last couple weeks of the semester. So before I move on, any questions on either of the 2 slides that I've shown so far?
Hey, Steve, I have a quick question about your stat with the high school.
Sure.
I guess what I'm trying to do is measure how bad that situation is. When you say it's down 100 fails over the last 2 weeks, percentage-wise, is that 5%, 50%, 75%? That doesn't tell me a whole lot.
So one of the things that we've shared is that the number of failing grades is about 3 times as much as it normally would be in a school year. And I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. I don't have that information for you, Jeff, but one of the last numbers that I saw was about 850 failing grades. Nick, do you know if that's in the ballpark?
Yeah, I was thinking between 8 and 9, so I think it got down to 8.
So out of 850, that's about 12%.
So like you said, about 3 times as high as it normally would be.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's nice to see that there are some measures being put in place, with the exception of going in-person learning. Is there anything else, or is that just about all we can throw at the problem right now?
I think the biggest issue is just making sure that we're contacting students and parents and having those conversations and identifying what the hurdle has been. In some cases, it's just students aren't engaged, and as students get older, they have some more autonomy and some independence, whether a parent is home or not. So it can be harder to motivate them to get engaged. Having worked in a high school environment, it's not uncommon as the end of the semester nears that a sense of panic or stress kind of develops because students that have flown under the radar for a while, all at once they're getting phone calls, or their parents are getting phone calls about their grades, just to have a conversation about what can be done to overcome those obstacles to get those students re-engaged. So I think the biggest issue really is just opening those lines of communication, identifying what the obstacle is, and then putting a plan in place to overcome it. Some students are fortunate that they have a parent or both parents that may be able to work from home. I think one of the bigger challenges is that, in some of our families, some of our homes, we have single parents who work. So with students who are left on their own at home for a long period of time, and there's a single parent who comes home and has worked a full day, whether it's eight hours or overtime, it can be really difficult. Those are challenging circumstances. So, and these are not things that our high school staff have just done over the last couple of weeks, things that have been developed over, the course of the semester. So the more communication I think that happens, the better position those students are in to be successful. So I think the next 4 or 5 weeks are going to be really telling to see how much success we're going to have.
Thank you. And is that evenly distributed across all grade levels, or is it heavy on the freshman side, or?
The overall number of failing grades?
Yeah, I guess, is there a discernible trend? Is it spread out amongst all grade levels? Or
I know it's distributed over grade levels. You may have a better idea of if it's concentrated at one.
Is there a trend, like sometimes freshmen struggle a little more with the adjustment, but?
Yeah, I think we've seen more freshmen this year than normal, but that's what the high school team's doing right now, is really trying to figure out what that data means. Yeah, that number's triple, but is that a student that's just completely disengaged and they're failing all 5 classes? Is that a student that maybe has had one failure before but now is failing more? not to get too much into like a philosophical discussion on this, but when we have grades and letters attached to them, it's hard to really know what that is. So that's what staff's really trying to do now, is to try and figure out what that means. Is it disengagement versus just not turning in one paper? Julian, you know, in English, if you miss that one paper, you might be failing the class. So they're working hard to try and figure that out right now.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Nick.
Any other questions?
I had some questions about the return to learning, seeing how we don't meet again until a week before that date. You said we're going to watch the numbers closely. Are we waiting for advisement from the health department? Are we going to pay attention to the metric that was created? Like, how do we decide?
It's a really good question. So we will here in Sycamore follow the same metric or the same plan, which includes metrics, but includes any other circumstances, for example, a potential spike after the holiday season. But we asked the DeKalb County Health Department that question in specific also. Our decision was based on their recommendation. And will they be willing to make another recommendation after the first of the year saying, you know, that they would support a return to learning in person, hybrid, whatever the case may be. I don't want to speak for the health department. They know that that's something that all of the school districts in DeKalb County would like to see is some sort of statement indicating that it's safe to start bringing students back or it's not. But I can tell you that they will also say, regardless of their statement, ultimately they also are going to say, you know, we trust the judgment of individual school districts to make that ultimate decision. So I'm hopeful that we can work with the health department to come to a place where we agree that the numbers hopefully look good enough that we can start bringing students back. What I'd really like to avoid is a situation where maybe the health department isn't comfortable, but we are, or vice versa. So ideally, it's a situation where the health department and the school district are on the same page and in agreement and how we can implement a plan to bring students back. Again, that hinges on what the numbers look like after the first of the year, especially that week or two after the first of the year to get past New Year's Eve and see where we're at. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Good.
Yep. But it's safe to assume that they would come out, since they've come out now once and made a recommendation, that they're going to come out with some type of recommendation, right? They would assume they'd almost have put themselves in a position to where they almost have to, right?
Well, a really good question, and I don't want to assume because I don't want to speak for the health department.
You don't want to speak for the health department tonight? Come on.
But I can tell you that request has come from the superintendents in general.
Sure.
As we get closer to that date, it sure would be nice to have that feedback and some sort of statement or recommendation from the health department. So they know that the desire is there, that's our hope that they would do that, but ultimately that's a decision they're going to have to make.
Okay.
Any other questions about either of the two slides so far? Okay. Well, I just want to review some of the data. I've tried at the last several meetings to just make sure that we see kind of the same consistent data, same tables that I pull from. So this is Region 1 test positivity up until December 4th. What you don't see is that dip that happened right before November 24th, heading into Thanksgiving. What you do see is that those numbers went up. They did go down just a little bit. They went back up a little bit, and actually the last couple of days were down, not quite a full percentage point, but down a little bit. So test positivity as of December 4th was 14.7 in Region 1. That includes all of the counties in Region 1. Here's DeKalb County data, and you see the tail end of that valley. There on right around Thanksgiving, started to climb a little bit, and we've come down just a couple tenths of a point. On December 4th, we were right at 14%. So this is also from the IDPH website. This is the number of cases per 100,000. residents in DeKalb County, and we're right at about 100,000 residents. So overall, you can see that peak before Thanksgiving. We have come down, but that number is still, it was right over, just above 400, if I remember correctly. Very similar trend in the test positivity in DeKalb County. Hit a peak right around Thanksgiving time, has come down a little bit. Would like to see that come down even more. These last two graphs that I've shown, one of the things that the health department has said that they would be looking for to support students returning to school is the trend going down. So not necessarily a specific percentage or a specific number of cases per 100,000, but seeing the trend go down. So this is good news. We'll have to wait and see what happens after Christmas and in the first of the year, but overall the trend line is good. This is Sycamore data, Cortland data, the two largest communities in our school district. Cortland is next. This is Sycamore. Again, you can see coming off of a valley right around Thanksgiving time, the numbers have gone up. We've come down just a couple of percentage points. These are 7-day rolling averages for case positivity, not test positivity. So the metric is a little bit different. Overall, though, what I'm looking for really is a trend, and is it going up, is it going down, is it stable? And Cortland data has gone up here recently. A little bit of a valley after Thanksgiving, actually, and then it's climbed up a little bit. So again, these are numbers that we'll be watching as we get through the first of the year. Any questions about the data before I move on? Or return to learn in general? The one magic question, I'm surprised Eric hasn't asked it yet, is about technology. We are expecting another update. We've gotten periodic updates from our vendor, and unfortunately no good news to report, but also the news isn't any worse than it's been before. In other words, we're not seeing shipment dates that are March, at least not at this point. But no new news from our vendor. So still hoping for a ship date that would get those devices here in January. It would be great if they arrive in January, but I think we may be looking at January, February at this point.
I just assumed Santa was bringing them at this point.
I've just given up on ever getting them.
And with that, I will move on from Return to Learn and ask Mr. Olson to join us and talk about live streaming board meetings. So live streaming board meetings is something that I know is new for the school district and the school board. I think the need to live stream meetings during the pandemic has been important. I think it's been good for the community to be able to see the discussion, hear the discussion. But moving forward, there are some challenges that I think the board needs to be aware of. And one of the things we've done is ask David to put together a couple of possibilities in terms of live streaming board meetings on a permanent basis. And David is much more knowledgeable about the audiovisual needs and the requirements that come with live streaming board meetings. The one thing that I'll kind of throw out before I turn things over to David is that we've been really fortunate during the pandemic that this space has not been needed. And in addition, that there weren't other needs in terms of live streaming events, such as a basketball game or a concert, while we've been live streaming board meetings. So we've been fortunate for those things, to take advantage of those, but after the pandemic is over and we're back in school, those circumstances will change a little bit, and that has kind of driven some of the options that David's put together. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to David, and I think I get to drive for him tonight.
You can. I can drive myself. So.
I'll let you do it.
We came more prepared today. I will say I'm not as comfortable in front of the camera as I am behind, so it's a little different to be on camera now, so I know what it feels like for y'all. So we started off and we took some analytics from the last several months of board meetings. The first column, you will see the concurrent viewers at its peak during each of the board meetings who are watching live. And if you go back and look at the agenda items, you can kind of see how that trend line kind of decides, or how many viewers we have. And then we went and looked at how many unique viewers each of those meetings had within a 7-day window after every board meeting. Again, I would say that is based off of the agenda items that have driven the number of viewers on there. And then, as Steve said, we looked at various locations in the district to kind of where would be a permanent location to have board meetings, in addition to looking at a mobile setup based on your feedback at the last meeting. So on the next slide, we've put those together. First one is remaining here. This, as you can see from the budget, is the cheapest option. This allows permanent installation of all equipment. It leverages the existing AV infrastructure that we have invested in this facility over the last several years. It will upgrade, the upgrade will benefit all of the events. In addition to the board meetings, it will improve our concerts, our meetings, our productions. And it reduces the current setup time to about 2 to 3 hours per meeting. Currently, we are averaging about 8 hours to set this meeting up every week if we were to completely tear it down and set it up. We have left it up when we can, but there have been times where we have had to completely clear this entire stage during the time. For the middle school, we looked at the cafeteria and the library, and really option 2, that column would be applicable to any facility within the district. They kind of all have the same cost just because of how much we need to invest there. This would also be a recommended permanent installation of equipment. We would fully upgrade AV infrastructure in all of those spaces, and the middle school also provides a central location. If you remember the last time we were at the middle school with a mobile setup, that took about 20 hours to set up, but with multiple staff members dedicating 2 days to get that up and running. So we are encouraging a permanent installation in a dedicated facility just to reduce setup time out of all of our locations. And then, again, we looked at the mobile to kind of go back to the traditional board where you guys would rotate amongst the schools. This we would be looking at probably 4 to 6 hours times 2 staff members to get that up and running. This would see an increase of wear and tear on the equipment, so we would be replacing the equipment more often than a permanent install. This option would only be used for board meetings. And then, like I said, the longest setup time with the most expensive budget. All of these options will provide an audio system with individual microphones as you currently have. All of them would route back to the high school and be produced here in the studio. As what most people don't know is we are currently producing out of the studio. We just route it all back here, but we would be using the current setup we are using. And we would use the existing network infrastructure to connect the locations. So everything right now does connect through our AV or our existing IT infrastructure. Those are our suggestions. I'm happy to answer any questions.
And just a reminder, we're not asking for a decision tonight, just providing some information to give the board to think about moving forward, to live stream meetings.
So I've been a big proponent of live streaming meetings during this pandemic because I know not all people feel comfortable coming here. So it's provided them access to what is supposed to be an open meeting that they're supposed to be able to attend. And so they've been able to see the discussion, and where perhaps they haven't been able to make public comment, they have been able to communicate with each of the board members or administration regarding their feelings or things they feel like we need to know. I think if we were a district with lots of money, continuing to live stream these meetings would be awesome. I'm just not sure that our district is in that position right now, and I think once post-pandemic, if it was anything like before the pandemic, there's not a lot of people that come to our meetings, quite honestly. But that opportunity hopefully is going to exist again so that they could actually be at a meeting and speak if they chose, participate as they wish. So I guess I feel like if these options, if this is something we want to do and it becomes part of the budget process and there's money for them, I guess I'm okay with it. I struggle with not visiting each of our schools. I think that's a really important thing we do, and for some of us, it's the only time we're in some of those places. So with it being the most expensive option, I struggle with it in general, I guess.
So I've got some thoughts on this too.
Go ahead.
So, go ahead.
I think I agree with Chris on a lot of this, and I was one of the earliest. I mean, I was a proponent of this going all the way back to when I first joined the board 7.5 years ago. In fact, I think it was one of the first things I brought up at a meeting was I would love to see our meetings recorded and broadcasted, because I thought that that was important from a transparency standpoint, and I think this has provided us a good opportunity to test that. I think I'd agree with Chris, though, that I'm not sure that there's enough of a demand there to justify a $60,000 price tag on it, and maybe a first good step would just be coming up with a cheaper way just to record the meeting so that they can at least be accessed later on, so someone can come back and say, oh, I heard you guys discuss something at that meeting, I'm going to go online and pull up that video on YouTube and watch it after the fact. And if we can do that with just a simple iPhone or video camera, it may not have quite the production quality of this, but if it lets us get it done for a few $100s and still provide the next level of transparency, I would be in favor of that.
All right, I got a couple thoughts myself. So I agree with most of what's said so far, but although I understand why we did this and why we're here, based on the scenario that we find ourselves in, it's very efficient, it's very well put together, but it is amazingly pretentious to me. And I feel very uncomfortable sitting on the stage, not even really being able to see their faces, masks irregardless. So I'm uncomfortable with this location, and knowing at some point when we go back to a more normal setting, this space is used all the time, particularly for orchestras and all the different things. To have to continually turn this over doesn't make sense. I also agree that I miss not being in the schools, and I think I would hate to lose the opportunity to be in each of the schools. I think there might be a little bit of a balance in here, in that it's good to have the transparency. If we were to have our regular meetings at the middle school, and I would even suggest the library as a good setup, because I don't think that gets the same kind of use and space that a lot of the other areas do, and that might even be a more conducive space for some of the things that could be done within the school. If we did that once a month there at a regular meeting, but still had our meetings at the individual schools, and those are just recorded. And if you want to come, you can still come like any other year it would have been. I also have an issue with, how we do that money, so I would love to see us seek some grant money or something like that to help supplement that cost. And I would love to see that even built into the curriculum that you've already been working on with Spartan TV. That might help find some additional funding to offset part or all of that cost. But I would like to get back to the schools once we're in a normal setting, and maybe we only live stream one meeting a month, and our other school meetings are just recorded and they're archived and people can find them. And because I don't think going remote all the time is practical with that many hours of setup and constantly moving around, and that's with, again, no other events that you have to cover right now. So once those other football, basketball, music events, whatever, you're going to find a conflict in being able to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I would agree with you on that. One thing we've discussed is, based on the current staffing, we could not support 3 events at one time. So there's no way for us to support an athletic event, an auditorium event, and a board meeting on a Tuesday. And Tuesdays are a very common concert and athletic event. So we would probably, if we were to stream from other locations, we would just not have concerts that night, just because staffing could not support, current staffing could not support 3 events at one time.
Right. I just don't want board meetings to drive when the students can do their things. They should do their things. Sure. Our board meetings happen at another.
I strongly agree with that. I think it starts sending a bad message that all of a sudden we're not going to stream things, or we're rescheduling their events. It's supposed to be all about them in order to accommodate our board meeting. I would rather us go back to our regular board meetings that people can come and feel comfortable being safe at when we get to that point. And then, like I said, if, a landfall of money comes our way, then we would revisit this and say, okay, now let's do that.
I completely agree. I really do. I agree. I really miss visiting the schools, just getting a feel for what they're doing. So, and I like the idea of recording the meetings, and, people can look at it whenever they have time.
Couldn't we go back to a more low-tech kind of presentation like we did when this first came on, and we had to kind of scramble, and we all used our own laptops? I mean, couldn't we just use Chromebooks or something like that, and have a Zoom platform and run it that way? Then we could go wherever we want in terms of visiting schools, and it would be, I would think the cost would be probably much lower than any of the three options that were presented.
We could definitely put 12 Chromebooks in front of every one of you for a board meeting, and we could stream that way. I would say the level of quality in that type of an experience would probably not be what we have done for the last 6 months since we've been here.
I would totally agree that the quality wouldn't be there, but, I mean, I think we'd accomplish what we needed to accomplish, which is that, we'd have a good audio recording and a plausible video recording if that was of interest to people. But, primarily it's going to be the audio, I think. And I think that would be a really good low-tech portable solution. Probably could run that out of the studio too, I would imagine.
Something like that would be self-contained through Zoom.
There wouldn't be any.
There would be no way to route that back, and for an in-person meeting, you would all have to wear headphones with microphones because all the laptops would start feeding back. So when you get 12 people in a Zoom meeting and this close of proximity, audio would definitely be a headache. So if you guys are, comfortable wearing headphones and microphones with the headphones at a public meeting, then yes, we could go that route.
Well, if it's going to give us mobility and it's going to save thousands of dollars, I don't see how that's a real big hardship. I mean, earbuds if we need to. I mean, they're maybe less oppressive than headphones, but I just, to me that seems like a good solution, or at least one that we should consider. And then another question I have for you, David, is if the middle school option said the cafeteria or the library. The cost that you listed there, we'd have to pick one or the other site within the middle school, or we'd have the option of using either site in the middle school? Our
suggestion would be to pick one spot, again, to do a permanent install and reduce the wear and tear on equipment so we're not replacing it as often. If the board want the option to go back and forth, we could gladly do that, but over a certain number of years, we would be replacing stuff more often.
I wasn't calling for that. I just wanted to see if that's what the option meant. We would have the facilities set up at both locations, and we would move if we needed to. But if that's not what you were presenting there, then I just wanted that clarification.
Yep. For me, David, I think it, and this really goes to you, Steve, and you, Jim. Part of it's got to be content driven as well. I mean, we all know when there's a hot button that's pressed with the general public. Mm-hmm. So there may be a time where we may just have to go, oh, wow, geez, we're getting a lot of phone calls over this topic. We're going to cover it at this meeting. That's when we need to tech up and get that out there to the general public and share that. So I don't know if you can really truly choose a static, model for each meeting, but I think we also have to remain a little fluid with that as well, and depending upon what may be going on. For example, if we're going back to school, those are big drivers of viewership. Financials could be another. Sometimes in the past there's been a RIF situation that gets a lot of attention as well. So, I think those are the meetings that we really need to focus on in the future and potentially rethink the schedule of events that we look at when we look at the board calendar. And maybe there can be another icon that has a video screen on it or video camera or something like that. That could be a way to annotate, that this meeting will be televised. So just a few thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that everyone said, but that was going to be my topic to bring up would be just the other side of that is that any hot topic where, especially just, I guess, kind of living in the age that we're living in right now. I mean, even on the backside of the pandemic, if we were in an environment where we weren't live streaming, but we're encouraging to fill the auditorium and pack the school, and I mean, is that really the best message to send? And if we can one-off that type of a thing where we know there could be a huge, I'd be awful curious what the turnout would have been for some of those decision-making meetings with no live stream, even in the middle of a pandemic, what it could have looked like in here. Because I know a lot of parents were on edge and, what time's the board meeting? How do I log in? All right, I'm logged in at 6:30, I'm waiting. I mean, that was some of the feedback I was getting is that, it's, and obviously the numbers kind of show, I mean, there was a lot of high priority interest. So in my opinion, we would have to have some type of flexibility to know, okay, hey, look, tonight is there, or, hey, in a couple nights, we're going to have a highly anticipated board meeting. We need to be able to either live stream it or be able to get whatever is coming out of that board meeting communicated ASAP to the parents or the public or whatever so that we can stay on top of that right away. But that'd be my only concern. But yes, I agree. I'd love being in the schools. I love being able to get that experience every year. That's been something I look forward to in just my first year on the board. So I definitely want to get back to that as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about that is I would hate to decide what the quote-unquote important issues or important meetings are.
Sure.
Because I'm sure there are issues for everybody. I think everything we deal with is important, actually. And I think there are people in the district who would find certain issues important that we might not find important, that might be offended that we're not broadcasting that particular meeting because we don't think it's important or we didn't think it was important enough to broadcast. So I would like to see a solution where we broadcast all the time, every meeting, and just have more mobility. I really think we should at least maybe consider trying the low-tech, I'll call it the low-tech solution, and trying that for a while and see if that works, because to me that gives us the best of both worlds, mobility and a low cost. So,
No.
But either way, I do think that if we're going to go with broadcasting, and we ought to do it for every meeting and not just pick certain ones. There are from time to time issues that come up that we think are going to require more space because we think we're going to get a lot more people in attendance, and we move those around from time to time, but sometimes that comes to pass and sometimes it doesn't. So if we're broadcasting all our meetings, though, we could still have that option of being mobile and moving if we need to accommodate a larger audience, if we think a physical audience is going to be present. So that'd be my suggestion.
I guess for me, going one a month where we broadcast and one where we're remote that's recorded accomplishes the same thing because they're not interacting with us with questions. So they can go and see everything that was discussed on a recorded meeting that was at North School versus the regular one that was at the middle school. I wouldn't want to pick which ones. I think it would just be first meeting of the month is at the school, second meeting of the month is recorded at the middle school or whichever. And it would just be set, and whatever falls on the agenda falls on the agenda, and they can either see the recorded version or watch the live stream. That's kind of that's what I was thinking anyway.
Yeah, I just do that with every meeting, though. I mean, I just do that. Zoom meetings, you can just hit the record button and you can record the Zoom meeting.
Yeah. I'm concerned about the quality of it because we've set a precedent a little bit here too. So I don't want to do it with poor quality either. So And I also don't want to spend $60,000, so. So can we make all that work?
Well, what I've heard is that, the options that we've presented, or at least the ideas that we've presented, are costly. Let's hold those, let's kind of put those to the side for right now, and maybe, Jim, as time goes on, I would suggest that this kind of a meeting, looking at the agenda tonight, there weren't any heavy topics. This is the sort of agenda where we might have been able to try, Chromebooks or a low-tech option just to kind of see how it works. So let's kind of look for maybe a meeting coming up that might fit that bill. In the meantime, I'll talk with David about what it might take to get a meeting, like that recorded or live streamed, Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. And, we'll give that a shot, see how it works. I think that's, the precedent in terms of quality, I think that's important to keep in mind. And if it's a meeting where people aren't hanging on every word and a decision, might be one to try something like that. So let's look for an agenda coming up like that and give it a shot and go from there if that's okay.
I think that's a good idea, yeah. See what the quality really is like when we do that. And I do think most of us probably have laptops that we can bring and use our own, so that we don't have to round up too many to accomplish our goal.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for David?
Thanks.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Mr. Olson. And how much you enjoy being in front of the camera. Okay, that takes us to the last item under the superintendent's report, which is a memorandum of understanding regarding evaluation procedures for certified staff during the 2020-2021 school year. So I'll share some information. Nick has really been on the committee that's worked on this, so I'll turn it over to him for any additional information. Just a little bit of background. The state board has a lot of flexibility this year in teacher evaluation due to the pandemic and so many schools using a hybrid or remote model. That does not create the kind of situation that teachers and administrators, are used to in terms of evaluating staff. So that's where that flexibility comes from. The Performance Evaluation Reform Act, or PARA, mandates the implementation of a joint committee to recommend procedures for teacher evaluation. That committee is made up of teachers and administrators, and that committee comes up with a recommendation that teachers have an opportunity to vote on through their association, and then the board needs to vote on. After the flexibility was announced by ISB, our local PARA committee developed modifications to the current teacher evaluation process, and I think that memorandum of understanding was in the board packet. The modifications were agreed upon, sent to the SEA membership for review and a vote, and they approved that. So tonight, we're bringing that memorandum of understanding to the board for your review and approval. This would allow us to modify teacher evaluation for this current school year only. And once the pandemic is over, we would revert back to the normal PARA procedures. So before I ask for any questions, Nick, did I miss anything?
No, I would just add that this is something most districts have done. Most have made some sort of tweaks. So we tried to use what we already had in place, and that tool wasn't really meant for a hybrid or remote setting, or certainly not a switch back and forth. So to be fair to teachers and help support them, we really wanted more of, I would say, a coaching model, a growth model than maybe an evaluative one. So we focused on, we normally in a traditional year, that tool focuses on 22 components. We picked out 9 that we thought would be okay if we switch back and forth, or we're just in one of those, including in person if we get to that point. So the changes were made off of the tool we had to really adapt, I guess, to the world we're living in with constant change.
Any questions about that? Once again, it's been approved by the SEA already, so what we would need is board approval tonight so that we can put that into action.
Is there a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding evaluation procedures for certified staff during the 2020-2021 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Is a roll call?
Jacobson?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes?
Wren?
Yes.
Shiloh?
Yes.
Davy?
Yes.
Tom Beck?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay. Then we're at open discussion and future agenda items. Any issues for discussion, observation, questions? Future agenda items? Is there a motion to go into executive session for the consideration of matters related to the appointment, employment, or dismissal of personnel and imminent litigation?
So moved.
Second?
You seconded, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Roll call?
Jones? Jones?
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes?
Wren?
Yes.
Shiloh?
Yes.
Davy?
Yes.
Jacobson?
Yes.
Tom Beck?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll exit briefly for our, well, are we going to exit? How are we going to bring Eric along with us?
We're going to call him so that he'll participate
okay.
by phone instead.
All right, so we are going to exit briefly for our executive session, and then we'll be back for our final votes.
Let the bass kick. bass kick. Let the bass kick.
Think about it. 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 Think about it.
Let the bass kick.
Think about it. 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 Think about it.
Be the biggest thing that's ever happened.
Breakdown.
Think about it. 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 Think about it.
Let the bass kick. Let the bass kick. Let the bass kick. Let the bass kick.
Think about it. 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 Think about it.
isn't properly set up, you might be missing some of the benefits that stereo can provide.
Missile down, radar down. What's happening? We're 3 minutes away from loss of signal. All the people on this earth are truly one.
It's a dream.
We create a mental atmosphere.
It's time to jam.
Wanna see the place jumping and bumping? Wanna see the place jumping and bumping?
We bring you this special radio television broadcast in order to give you the very latest information on an amazing phenomenon.
I'm a real. I'm a real.
All the people on this earth are truly one. We've had loss of signal now.
Okay, we're back in regular session. Is there a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, roll call?
Wren.
Yes.
Shiloh.
Yes.
Davy.
Yes.
Jacobson.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes?
Dombeck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Enthusiasm.
Everyone.